One of the first things that I did without anybody's approval, other than the approval of my colleague Peter Burns, we forbade intelligence tests. The most significant thing that happened is nobody noticed. You know, as soon as they can define intelligence, we'll measure it. But you know, so that was the first thing. And
that was quite a radical step, wasn't it?
Except that it's rather a sensible step. I mean, if you can't define something, why are you measuring it? I mean, it's. I also used to have fun with that with our chief psychologist, who most of us are so grateful that we had. And I would say now, if you have all these subtests that form an intelligence test. So if I teach all of those, will that make the kid brighter? And of course, that was kind of heresy to talk like that. But leaving the intelligence tests aside, we had probably the most sophisticated support services of any board in the province. We had chief psychologists, we had speech pathologists, we had behavior specialists, and we had teachers that had 4 or 5 years of special education experience who were brought in, who were special education resource teachers. We borrowed that name from another board. And these people could be asked to go out to the schools to do something. However, none of it was done singly. We had teams, so that a multidisciplinary team would meet and discuss the child. Even before that, though, one of I guess this was an innovative thing that we did. I can't think of anybody else that did, but they do it now. We had an in-school diagnostic prescriptive team, which is a nice big name. But what it was the principal and the special ed teacher and a couple of teachers would meet on a weekly basis and discuss. And the teacher would bring forward John and say, John has trouble writing 2 lines. And it was at that level. And then they would give some assistance in there, and then the local school had that. That was we didn't do much of this, but that was mandated. You had to have it and you had to meet. There was no choice, you know. Then you really let it grow from there. And then if they couldn't cope with that, then they could refer to central services. So we had the central services, but we're really not much for tests. You know, the tests might point in a particular direction, but I think unfortunately today the tests have become kind of infallible. Those who had trouble with the infallibility of the Pope had no problem with the psychologist. You know, but we did. We were kind of skeptical, and my message to everybody is ask questions. Ask questions. You know, don't just to be good, but ask questions. It didn't make any sense that you were going to decide something on an intelligence test that didn't have any validity. Worse than that, if a child, to be facetious, had an IQ of 10 and a 6. What do you bring him upstairs and say, John, you know, go and get a job. We got nothing to offer you here. You know, that's obviously silly. You know, and I go back to my first year teaching. I remember a boy named Robert Wilgosh. He's in his 60s now, I'm sure. Who sat in the second last row, and he had an IQ of 84. However, he kept getting 90s and 95s on his tests, and he was a magnificent artist. And I didn't have enough sense at that time to suggest that maybe the test was wrong. But I think a lot of those things put together, and I started saying, hey, this is crazy. Besides that, you know, I had to look at my own example, but we won't go any further now.